Thanks for joining us here on 9 News Watch. I'm Chris Bianchi. In just a few moments' time, we're going to have an update from Denver Mayor Michael Hancock about the future, or the potential future, of Denver's outdoor dining program. Now, this has obviously proven quite popular over the last few years. This was last year and a half, I should say. This was implemented in May of 2020, obviously to deal with the pandemic and help bars and restaurants expand their capacity. It was originally scheduled out to be until October of last year. That was then extended a full year until October the 31st of 2021. Now, October the 31st of 2021 is on Sunday, so we're about to find out the fate of the Denver outdoor dining program now as we head into the upcoming winter. Mayor Hancock's going to be joined by representatives from several different city agencies, but also, and most intriguingly, Denver restaurateurs and the Colorado Restaurant Association. So, as I mentioned, the outdoor dining program has proven fairly popular across the city, with a lot of people taking advantage of it and a lot of restaurants using it, not only during the pandemic, but there's been calls for that to continue. So because of the fact that you've got Denver restaurateurs and the Colorado Restaurant Association, I'm reading between the lines here a little bit, but you might imagine there might be a solution that'll be friendly to those two agencies and to restaurants in general as a result of that. Now, in August, Denver transportation workers began ending the temporary shared streets initiative, something similar that began during the pandemic as a way to promote social distancing. Again, we're going to see that now carried forward as a result of this. Now, businesses that are not impacting the right-of-way can still apply for an 120-day extension for outdoor seating past October the 31st, and restaurants and streets and sidewalks can also extend 90-day extensions. But what we're looking for here today, and what's so significant about what we're about to see from Denver Mayor Michael Hancock, is the more permanent, semi-permanent or permanent future about the Denver outdoor dining program. Again, a lot of takeaways here from the pandemic, and this is one of those that has proven to be fairly popular amongst city residents as well as city restaurants. So we're about to get an update from Denver Mayor Michael Hancock, along with representatives from various city agencies, Denver restaurateurs, as well as the Colorado Restaurant Association. The stream, in fact, the shot is already up there from the mayor, and so we're about to get this update here in any moment. So we're going to go out to Mayor Hancock and get this update here about the future of Denver's outdoor dining program.
are from the Lydia restaurant over here. This is the gentleman here.
How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Summer.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome to the college. We went to the same high school as me.
Your Thunderbolt?
I attended the
Get out of here.
class of '92. But
What? All right. I love it.
It's from this restaurant here.
Angela, you gonna speak after her? Sure. Okay. Let me thank everyone for being here today, and I want to thank this wonderful restaurant, Daughters, for welcoming us. And I just learned you're the owner.
I'm the owner of Little India Restaurant.
Oh, Little India. Well, thank you, Little India, for being with us.
Thank you.
Simran, who is here with us, who's also a manual Thunderbolt, and so that just makes him pretty darn good. Appreciate it. Is this the owner?
Yes.
Welcome. How are you?
Hi, good
Good to see you. What's your name?
Un.
I was trying to figure out how to pronounce it on the way over. Thank you for having us. Yeah, this is great. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. One of the main objectives that we faced or we are confronted this pandemic with was, of course, securing everyone's public health. It was at the center of everything that we tried to do. And it's also critically important to do everything we can to help our small businesses, particularly those who were hit hardest and disproportionately burdened by the pandemic. And the restaurant industry was certainly one of those industries. We wanted to keep their employees working and paid, and we wanted to keep them open for our communities. Helping these local businesses stay in business is the driving force behind the temporary outdoor dining program that we had in place. So we wanted to help them continue with some serving capacity, of course, while the indoor capacity was limited. 373 restaurants in Denver participated in the program or are participating to date in the program, and providing that opportunity for these businesses to increase seating space and serve more customers while they help folks stay safe, of course, and feel more comfortable while dining out was critical to Denver's recovery and critical, quite frankly, to the sustainability of the restaurants. Even though the current temporary program isn't slated to end until October of next year, if you remember, we extended it until a year from now. We're already working to find a pathway for many of our dining establishments in this program to remain on a permanent basis with extended outdoor patio seating. And I'm proud to announce today that I've directed many of the agencies who are already involved in this effort to continue to stay in the laboratory, as I like to say, to make this program go beyond October of next year and continue to make it a success. Those departments include community planning and development, Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, Excise and Licensing, the Denver Fire Department, and Denver Economic Development and Opportunity. We hope to continue this program again to make it a permanent pathway for our restaurants in the city of Denver. We want to make it safe for everyone, of course, and we want them to have permanent investments in their outdoor sitting program to boost their sales while being able to serve their customers in a safe environment. Now, with traffic levels returning back to normal, we won't be able to have every dining area that has expanded seating into the public right-of-way to continue. I want to say that clearly, but what we're going to do is to go by a case-by-case, restaurant-by-restaurant, bar-by-bar assessment of what is possible. So DOTI, Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, is working on developing the criteria for new and existing applicants that they will consider safe and able to continue with our mobility efforts in the city of Denver. Community Planning and Development will launch a public process in early 2022 to develop the zoning standards that will apply to expanded outdoor dining areas. In Denver, we want to have the most successful program in the nation while keeping strong safety measures in place for outdoor dining on some streets, sidewalks, parking lots, and other areas adjacent to these establishments. Again, before you ask, we know that right now we're in the midst of a temporary program, and not every outdoor dining area will be able to operate in perpetuity beyond the extension of next year. But that's why we're beginning this process now to begin the assessment of each of these establishments. Each application will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, but all the agencies working on this program to keep, again, outdoor seating operating where possible. And we hope there are many more. This is the goal. We want as many as possible, but it has to be safe. From the transportation perspective, safety and mobility will be key to their considerations, as well as maintenance responsibilities and permitted private construction activities. Zoning standards created in partnership with our communities will create a permit pathway for restaurants to permanently use vacant space on their lots while improving the urban design standards that apply to their outdoor patios. City agencies working on this program will continue to give each applicant personalized service and work to help them navigate the permitting process. And so everybody will be ready to go once we lay the groundwork for it. So I look forward to the finalized proposals that will come from all the agencies from this effort, and we'll take all the necessary changes that require City Council approval, of course the City Council, to establish it again as a permanent law in the city of Denver. Let me say this, that I want to make it clear, I strongly support the patio seating program for our restaurants and bars. I think it's important to know that there were some good things that came out of the pandemic, if you will, our response to the pandemic. And that was, we discovered that we can be more creative with regards to our restaurants and our bars to expand out into the right-of-way. I think it's aligned with our multimodal efforts to kind of condense and lessen the number of cars that are on our streets, while at the same time creating these great areas of Denver, including here in this area of town. Larimer Square and downtown are examples, I think, of where we have a real powerful opportunity. The Pearl Street District, real opportunity to do some full-scale maybe closures of streets, as well as just some patio extensions into the public right-of-way. So we have a powerful, powerful opportunity here, and I'm excited about what we can leave as a permanent relic of our efforts during this very difficult but challenging and opportunistic time in our history. So I'm going to turn it over to the Restaurant Association, who's going to speak as well.
Yes, you bet. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for having me here to celebrate and mark this incredibly exciting achievement for Denver restaurants. I'm Molly Steineman, and I'm the manager of local government affairs with the Colorado Restaurant Association. I want to start by thanking Mayor Hancock, the Denver City Council, the Department of Excise and Licenses, Community Planning and Development, the Department of Transportation, and all the city officials who work to extend the Denver Patio program. Extended patios have provided a crucial lifeline to restaurants through the COVID-19 pandemic, and Denver restaurants overwhelmingly support the program, and many would like to make it permanent. During a time when Denver restaurants saw their indoor dining capacity severely limited, if not eliminated completely, the City of Denver acted to support its local businesses by allowing restaurants to continue to serve their communities by expanding safely outdoors. 68% of Denver restaurants benefited from this allowance and reported that expanded patios allowed them to add much needed capacity during 2020 and 2021. Restaurants reported that, on average, 54% of their summer revenue came from their patios. Perhaps most importantly, the expanded patio program has allowed Denver restaurants to keep their employees employed. Restaurants said that Denver patios saved or created about 30% of their staff jobs. As one Denver restaurateur told us, the temporary outdoor dining program was hands down the best thing that helped us make it through the pandemic, and it continues to help us rebound. Consumer dining habits have already changed in response to the Delta variant, causing 1/3 of diners to seek outdoor dining instead of indoor. The continuation of this incredibly important program will serve as a safety net for hundreds of Denver restaurants as they walk the path to post-pandemic recovery. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela Fillion with Daughter Thai Kitchen and Bar. When the pandemic hit, we had just opened and we didn't have a patio, and we were really concerned that we were going to have to close our doors. The city, I believe, saw a looming crisis of not just people losing their jobs, but of restaurants permanently closing. And I think they came up with a great way to expand occupancy while ensuring that social distancing was still maintained. They simplified the permitting process and posting requirements and made the approval time response quick so that we could be up and running with our patio. This program allowed us to serve alcohol before our original permitting was even in place, and this was huge for us. It was absolutely instrumental in helping keep our doors open and our staff employed. We are also fortunate to have such wonderful customers that have been extremely supportive and continue to be extremely supportive. As things are still uncertain with COVID, we fully support the decision to keep the program going as it has been vital to our business.
Thank you, Don.
Hi, my name is Simran Bedwan, and I'm actually the owner of Little India Restaurants in Denver. I wanted to thank the city of Denver, Mayor Hancock, for this expansion program. If it wasn't for the program, I don't think we would actually be in business right now. Having the 6 feet social distancing, expanding out into the parking lot, we were given that lifeline to actually be able to survive. Now, for that reason, and because of that expansion, we were able to keep our employees. We didn't furlough any of our employees. We did give them some odd jobs, from deliveries to takeouts and things like that, helping in the kitchen and whatnot. But the expansion of having a patio or not having a patio, and then, having to serve people in the parking lot just gave us sort of a lifeline. We have a lot of immigrant people that actually worked for us. So, at that point, we couldn't tell them, hey, that, the pandemic has hit and now we're closing our doors. So this actually just really helped us quite a bit. And we're glad about the fact that it's actually been expanding even more as an expansion, so we can actually keep going at it and keep serving people and not furlough our employees and still keep our folks. And so they're actually able to send money back to their folks back home, because it's just not, for us, it's also for their families. So I wanted to share that with you folks. So thank you.
Thank you, Sir Prin. And I think what you heard are 2 final things I want to share with you. One is the multiplier impact regarding this program. Families were able to continue to take care of themselves during the pandemic, and that's critical, that employees were still able to work. Secondly, I want to make clear that this program did help a lot of restaurants and bars remain open and continue to serve. We saved over $80 million worth of business for our businesses in Denver because of this pandemic. Or at least they were able to generate over $80 million worth of revenue as a result of this effort to expand patios. And in closing, I want to say thank you to the Economic Recovery and Relief Council that came together. These were about 300 residents and business leaders in Denver that we convened to help the city think about not only how we responded appropriately to the pandemic, but what does it look like post-pandemic and going forward. And it was that collection of intellectual capital, if you will, and creativity that came up with the concept of expanded patios and recommended the program to me and to the agencies. And so I want to thank them, because that creativity had telling us, this is not the time for us to bog ourselves down into red tape and bureaucracy. This is a time for us to be creative and to figure out a way to help these small businesses survive during this very difficult time, keep people working, and help people have some normalcy in terms of being able to dine out. So I want to say thank you to all those individuals, the leadership that they continue to demonstrate as they continue to work. I'm just going to bring the other agencies up here. We're going to open up for question and answer. Please join us. Join me up here, Dottie, Ashley Kilroy of Excise and Licensing. Oh, I didn't know you had a boot on. we got Dottie here as well. I saw. Let's open it for question and answer. Any technical questions, we'll make sure they're able to answer. In the back there.
Yeah, Mayor Hancock, we've heard these restaurants say that people are still uncertain. Is the city considering other safety measures like indoor mask mandates or proof of vaccinations at restaurants to continue to keep people safe as cases rise?
As always, the answer remains the same. Data will lead us, and everything remains on the table. As we are continue to watch all the metrics that are important to us, infection rates, of course, hospitalizations, very important to us, and one of the main metrics that we look at. Obviously, we look at death rates for us to make the determination of whatever policies we want to put in place. But it would be too early for us to take anything off the table, and certainly we don't want to be premature in terms of putting in a policy that we haven't been able to verify or allow data to sustain itself to tell us we need to make changes. Yes.
You mentioned that not all the restaurants are going to be able to come in, are going to be able to continue with the outdoor program. Do you know what percentage or what number of those won't be able to?
No, not until the assessments or evaluations. So anybody else want that about right? Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just off of that question too, what are some of the reasons that an applicant
Nance, come on up, Nance.
Hi, everyone. Nancy Kuhn, Director of Public Information for Denver's Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. So over the past several months, what we've done is we've allowed people to expand in both the public right-of-way and in adjacent lots to expand their patio programs. So what we're saying here today is that, gosh, we're now opening this up to you'll be able to do this in the future, past when the temporary program ends. So from the DOTI perspective, we are looking at right now, what are the criteria? What are the limits? You know, what do we want to put in place in the future? So when people apply, we bounce that against, you know, kind of what criteria do we have in place? Some of the things we're going to look at is, so there's two types of right-of-way setups, maybe even three you could call it. One is right behind the curb, so you've got that space between the sidewalk and the curb. So we call it the tree lawn area. So we've got some in that area. Those might go through a different review than those that happen between the two curbs, so in the street. So we have some in the parking lane right now, and we have some in the travel lanes. So we're going to look at, especially those that are going to happen in between the curbs, so in your parking lane and your travel lanes. We're going to look at, you know, we look at the proposal, we say, what are you proposing? Let's take a look at what that street is all about. Do we have large volumes of cars? Do we have high speeds? You know, we want to be safe, right? So we don't want people out there drinking lattes with, you know, cars speeding by. So we're going to look at not only what's happening on the street, but what kind of protection do we want in place? So if you know, so maybe it's a street with lower volumes, we will look at, well, what kind of protection then do we want in the street? So we're going to be, you know, looking, you know, what are the options and what kind of things do we want you to put to kind of protect those folks that are in the parking lane. So what we're going to be looking at is both what's happening in the street, vehicle volumes, speeds, what are you actually proposing, and then maybe sometimes we can say, well, we have an alternate idea that maybe we could work together on, and then you know, we're just going to, the key is that safety. So we'll look at safety for patrons and for servers, and we're going to look at mobility. So what would that setup do to the traveling public? Would that hinder people's ability to move around town? So safety and mobility are the two key points that we'll look at from the DOTI perspective.
Anything from Jill or Ashley? Jill from Plan?
Hi, Jill Jennings-Golick, Deputy Director of Community Planning and Development. So from a private property standpoint, our zoning code controls that, and we have regulations in place today that govern location, types of covering for outdoor patios. And so those are the types of regulations that we'll be looking at. During the temporary program, for instance, some expanded into their parking areas. And so we'll be looking at, do we want to allow some flexibility in terms of maybe you don't have to meet your minimum parking requirement in order to allow some patio space? What type of coverings would be allowed for weather protection, shade protection, et cetera. So those are the regulations we'll be looking at when we kick it off next year.
Mayor, you had mentioned KUSA.
One last one. Ashley
And
wants to
I was just going to say,
introduce
oops,
yourself,
oops,
Ashley.
sorry, I'm stumbling with my boot. I'm Ashley Kilroy. I'm the Executive Director of the Department of Excise and Licenses. So once a restaurant wants to extend their patio and they go through and they get approved by the Department of Transportation or by the Community Planning and Development, then they come to Excise and License to get their liquor license. And if they pass all those inspections, based on some of the laws, the changes that we saw to state law related to liquor, we would be able to license them. So it's a multi-agency effort. Thank you.
Now you know why we got them all coming together now to figure this all out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yes.
You had mentioned that maybe some streets could close permanently. Can you elaborate on that?
Again, under the same criteria that have been discussed here. Coming up,
Are there certain ones
Nance.
that he's looking at?
Well, I think Lambert Square is one of those concepts that can be considered seriously for closure. I think we're looking at Glenarm. The street has been requested as well in downtown Denver, at least a portion of Glenarm near 16th Street Mall, Pearl Street. These are just some of the streets that we know of, at least that I've had personal conversations with. Nancy, maybe there's some other criteria you'll look at.
You know, again, people will apply for the new program. We'll take a look at what they're proposing. We'll look at what it means for safety and mobility. Case by case basis, we'll look at it and make a determination.
Nancy, is there one that you think is unsafe right now that you can think of? Like,
No, not that, no. Because we're reviewing, so you guys may not be aware, so every 3 months right now, people are applying for a renewal. So we're on a 3-month renewal process right now. So every 3 months we're looking at those, and we're looking at, did anything change? You know, is there a new construction project happening? Do we need to get in there and pave? Is there a utility project coming? So we're reviewing those. You know, we're also going to be, you know, we've got winter around the corner, right? And so that also, it provides new considerations for us. So safety during, you know, we've got plowing operations. We need the street to be able to drain properly. So the next renewal period will be taking a really hard look at those things, considering the winter months that are coming.
I mean, we didn't waive all of the regulations around safety. I mean, we used the city as in our regulations. We certainly looked at it during the midst of the pandemic. We didn't let it stop us. It wasn't the excuse. It was like, what does yes look like? And safety was always paramount, obviously. And so we still have those regulations in place. We have to check them on a regular basis. I'm sorry, I had a question. I interrupted you.
Mr. Mayor, what's a timeline on this for businesses that want this to be a part of their permanent business plan? What can they expect to see in the coming months?
Well, obviously, we have a year now. We are under a year strategy in which every 3 months they're doing a review and re-upping. We want to get it done as quickly as possible so the city, these companies can plan appropriately. And if it's impacting more than just one business, maybe like Larimer Square, where it's about, impacting an entire block and going to change entire traffic patterns, then we want to try to get ahead of that as quickly as possible. I think this is a fabulous concept, by the way. I just cannot tell you enough about how excited I was to see how well it played out around the city of Denver. We're one of the first cities in the country to do what we did, and to see it play out as well as it did. And now to see it play out, continue to play out so well, I think people really enjoy Patio City, and I want us to continue it with safety being paramount and first and foremost. Yes. Let's go here, and then we'll go in the back too. I see. Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry, 2 things. One, just to be clear, are people still applying for new permits to get Patio City, or is it just extended permits?
It's both.
Okay.
So renewals and
Okay.
Let's get in the microphone so they can have it on record first.
yeah, sure. Yes. So we every couple of months we send an email to those folks that are already in the program saying now's the time to renew, resubmit your paperwork, we'll take a look at it, and then we still offer that pathway for people to get into the program that are new.
Good. And Mayor, the second question is just to be clear, are you looking at just how to extend the program permanently, or are you looking at possibly expanding it in some way? I mean, is this just status quo but permanent, or something new?
We'll see what the recommendation is. Obviously, this is something new in terms of patio expansions in the right-of-way. At least different, rules, and we're seeing it certainly more pervasive throughout the industry. So we're looking at how we make it permanent, and then those who want to join in and add to it, they'll have the new rules and opportunities that come along with it. We're right here and then in the back.
When it comes to the application process, are there any opportunities for community input, or is that something that restaurants need to have a
Great
talk with their
question. Further
neighborhood
in the
about
process.
before?
So currently, when we're talking about in the public right-of-way, and maybe it's different for CPD that deals with the adjacent lots, but currently what we do is if you are proposing, perhaps to be right in front of your restaurant, maybe that parking lane right in front of your restaurant, that's sort of one request. If you're asking to then, I want 2 or 3 and be in front of other businesses, then we're going to look at that separately, and we're going to want to talk to those businesses to make sure, that we dot that I, because as activities picking back up, more parking may be needed to get people in and out and visiting businesses. Whereas for a while in the pandemic, we didn't have a lot of activity. There wasn't a lot of people on the roads, and not a lot of parking wasn't heavily utilized. But we're kind of moving to a new time with traffic levels picking up and parking more demand. So how do we balance that? And again, if you're looking to extend sort of beyond your front, then we're going to take a good look at that, hard look at that, make sure they understand that the request has come in.
So ideally, by October 2022, will all 373 licenses be reviewed and either permanent or
Joe?
So we'll be really updating our regulations from a zoning code perspective, as well as working with Dottie on their existing programs and making potential modifications, and then folks will have to reapply. We know there could be a gap on the zoning side at least. We expect the effort to take about a year, so early 2023, and so we'll be addressing that gap early next year when we kick off this effort to make sure that businesses know what to expect and when to apply once we have new regulations in place.
Ashley, you want to make a comment?
I wanted to follow up on the question, Ashley Kilroy, Excise and Licenses. I wanted to follow up on the question about the renewal and whether or not neighborhoods and neighbors get to weigh in. And as you know, from the liquor license standpoint, state liquor law and Denver's law is based on the needs and desires of the neighborhoods. So with excise and licenses, every 120 days, we send a notice out to the restaurants and tell them they need to repost what they're doing, post out on the side of the building that they're going to have their expanded patio. And the neighbors, they post for 5 days. And if we have about 5 neighbors 15. If 15 object or submit some concern, we'll hold a needs and desires hearing. So with Department of Transportation, it's every 90 days. With excise and license, it's every 120 days. Thank you.
Let's take one last question and we'll conclude. Did I see? Who was it? Oh, it was you. Yes.
So Jill Jennings-Golick again. So every time we make a modification to our zoning code, it's a very public process. We have lots of conversations with our neighborhood residents, neighborhood organizations, and of course, for the severed, obviously the restaurant community. So we know that will take a little bit of time, but we will be addressing that gap between when we think new regulations will be in place and then the end of the temporary program as it stands currently. So we expect to address that issue next year is when we launch this effort, so that they have some clear guidance in terms of what they can continue to do.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all.
Restaurant Association answer some questions for you guys. Mary, here.
There were no questions? Oh, okay.